I've always been really drawn to technology and gadgets and tinkering with things from when I was a pretty young fella building computers in my garage at home. And also I'm definitely I guess an advocate for action on climate change and more sustainable lifestyle choices. And then I guess the third thing is I'd worked in the energy sector and found that sector to be really fascinating. Worked in large-scale renewables and things, and EVs was the kind of next new thing in the energy transition. So those things combined, like, it was all me.
Can you run us through the energy transition?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a nutshell, because I don't want to bore all your viewers and listeners to death, but essentially up until perhaps 40 or 50 years ago, all the energy in Victoria and in Australia, or the vast majority of it, other than some hydro, was powered by coal. Particularly if we focus in on Victoria, brown coal, which is really nasty. It was all generated in one spot. We burnt coal in the Latrobe Valley, generated electricity through a steam turbine, and we all benefited from the cheap energy that came out of that, which was fantastic. It made Melbourne the economic centre that it is. And then we realised that there were perhaps some other sides of that weren't doing us too many favours in terms of damage to the environment. And then we've seen accelerating over the last couple of decades, and particularly in recent years, the transition to large-scale wind, solar, and obviously rooftop solar, which is more popular here than anywhere else in the world.
And what do you use in the renewables in your life?
For me, well, I've got a fully electric home now. So as of a couple of years ago, I've transitioned away entirely from fossil fuels. So that includes having my gas meter completely removed, and the gas connection to my house completely removed, transitioning all my appliances, my cooktop, my hot water, and then more recently my car to being fully electric. So there's no fossil fuels at home. Although I have to, full disclosure, I do have a wood-fired pizza oven still, which gets fired up from time to time.
So you're catching your own meat as well, I assume.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Rob, what's the biggest misunderstanding people have about EV charging?
Oh, it's a good question. I think it's probably that it takes too long, and it doesn't. It's not a misunderstanding in terms of the fact that does it take longer to charge an EV than it does to fill up a combustion engine car with petrol. That's true, and it will probably remain true for a considerable amount of time. But I think it's really about how that time that you're taking to charge your car can be used elsewhere. So when you're pumping fuel into your car, you sit there, you put the nozzle in your car, and you pump the petrol, and it takes a matter of seconds, maybe a couple of minutes if you've got a really, really large tank. With an EV, what we're increasingly seeing is that charging opportunities are co-locating with places that you want to be. So, for example, a shopping centre is a really clear one, or a supermarket. I know that Woolies, for example, are rolling out EV chargers at a lot of their stores. So, yes, charging your EV might take 20 minutes, for example, but if you're doing something else at the time, then the time is quite irrelevant. So if you're going to fill your trolley and doing your weekly shop, or you're doing a workout at the gym, or you're catching a movie while your EV is charging, and you come back to your car and it's fully charged, then it doesn't really matter how long it took. And you compare that to going to a petrol station. Yes, it is a much more rapid experience, but you have to specifically go to a petrol station to fill up and then get on to your destination, as opposed to going to your destination, plugging in your car, doing the thing that you need to do, and then getting in and going home.
What are the average times to charge, and like fast charge versus not fast charge?
It really depends. So a really fast charger, if your battery is, if you're on a road trip, say between Melbourne and Sydney, you can kind of get that done you get a meaningful charge in 10, 15 minutes. And then if you're at a slower charger, perhaps at one of those destinations that we mentioned, so you're at maybe a holiday resort, that you've reached your destination, it might take you 10 hours to charge. But the thing is, it's charging overnight while you're in the hotel or you're in your caravan. So it really is, and I think this is the transition that people's understanding is taking a little bit of time to catch up with. Is it's not comparing the time to fill up a car with the battery. It's not, I guess, a fair comparison, and it's really about where that charging or where that compared to where that fueling experience fits into your life. In the same way that you don't think about how long it takes to charge your mobile phone, at least most people don't, you just kind of plug it in whenever there's juice available, and you know that over the day or the week with your phone usage that your battery won't be flat because it becomes second nature.
It's a big change of mindset, but that's all it needs to be, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is a mindset change. I think charging availability, particularly public charging availability, is something that gets a lot of noise in the same, I guess, conservative media outlets that you'd expect. In the same way that I guess EV fires and a whole bunch of these other myths, which are just really complete furphies, and the evidence demonstrates that. But it's really about people understanding and having their own experience. Because if you have charging or range anxiety, as they call it, like that's a legitimate feeling. That's a feeling that you have that may be preventing you from getting an EV. And it doesn't matter how many people who tell you that that's not a real concern for the vast majority of cases. It doesn't matter how many people tell you that. You've really got to experience yourself before you feel, I guess, reassured around those things.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the plug-in hybrid is the way to combat the range anxiety?
Personally, no. I do think plug-in hybrids definitely have a role. In the same way that for some time yet, I think there'll be very, very small amount of edge cases where I think petrol cars have a role. I think plug-in hybrids are more about meeting people in the middle who are on the fence, not sure about getting an EV, so they kind of hedge their bets. I say this to people all the time. If you're not ready to get an EV, my personal recommendation is not to get a plug-in hybrid, because I think what they really do is they eliminate a lot of the benefits around having an EV, and in my opinion, you get the worst of both worlds. And I can come back to that, but there are exceptions. So, for example, we're seeing a lot more ute and commercial vehicles come onto the market that are hybrid. And if you're towing heavy loads or you're transporting heavy loads and you're driving very long distances whilst you're transporting heavy loads, then a hybrid might be for you. If you're talking about a passenger vehicle, ferrying the kids around or going on family road trips or getting the shopping or going to work, then a pure EV is definitely the way to go. And what I mean by that is a couple of the major benefits around having an EV are not having to service a petrol engine. So the service costs for an EV are far cheaper. But as soon as you throw a petrol engine under the hood, then you've eliminated that benefit. And there's a couple of others as well. I think what I would suggest to people who are perhaps considering an EV but are not sure yet is don't buy a hybrid. Go and rent an EV for a week. Like a pure EV. Buying a car is probably the second biggest investment you'll ever make after your home. So renting a car for a week might seem like a lot of money, but if it helps you make the right decision ultimately on that $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 investment, then I really think that's the way to go, yeah.
Mm. I met a guy who had a beautiful looking car. I looked it up and it was a plug-in hybrid, and I complimented him on it, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm not really using the electric part of it though, because I don't get any benefit from work from it." I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's. I guess it creates a whole nother series of trade-offs in that respect. The other thing with a hybrid is most of the hybrids these days don't have a huge amount of a pure electric range, that somewhere between 40 and 80-ish. Mm-hmm. And that just means that you're having to charge it all the time. So my EV at home, it does somewhere around 500, just under 500 Ks on a charge. And I don't drive, or very few people drive 500 Ks every day or even every couple of days. So it means I can kind of charge once a week and I'm enjoying the benefit of fully electric driving. Whereas if you've got a hybrid that does 40 Ks, you're having to be really, really religious about charging every night to make sure that you're getting the benefit. And I just think as humans, we're often not that programmatic in the way that we do things.